Before we begin, this episode contains detailed allegations of sexual assault. From The Australian, here's what's on the front. I'm Claire Harvey. It's Friday, July 5. The Albanese government is one senator lighter today after renegade West Australian Fatima Payman quit the Labor Party and announced she'll move to the crossbench. Payman was disciplined for voting with the Greens on a measure supporting Palestine, and now she's refusing to rule out starting a party of her own. The east coast of Australia will run out of gas in 2027 without urgent action to find new sources of supply. Australia may even have to import gas, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission says. Bruce Lehrmann will face a jury in Toowoomba in Queensland, where he's accused of raping a woman he met in a nightclub. Lehrmann denies any wrongdoing but hasn't formally entered a plea. Today, how a trip to visit his hometown turned into Lehrmann's latest legal nightmare. It's Saturday, October 9, 2021. Spring in the subtropical Queensland city of Toowoomba, where it's humid and warm overnight. Bruce Lehrmann is at The Vault, a strip club on Ruthven Street that describes itself as the home of the hottest girls in town and Queensland's finest adult venue. It's popular with bucks and hens parties. There are topless waitresses, lap dancers, women dancing on poles, and a bondage room described as a place to explore the boundary between pleasure and pain. Lehrmann meets a young woman and introduces himself as Bryce. She's had some drinks and consumed 4 lines of cocaine, she says, to sober herself up and gain entry to the nightclub after she'd been out drinking with friends. Around 4 a.m. on the Sunday, October 10, Lehrmann and the woman leave the vault, climb into a taxi and head to the home of a schoolmate of Lehrmann who grew up in Toowoomba. They have sex 4 times, according to Lehrmann. They also do some more coke after Lehrmann finds a package of cocaine in her bra. But it's what happens as the sun climbs into the sky on Sunday. By 12 noon, it's already 25 degrees. That has sent both their lives in a new direction.
She alleges she woke up to him inside of her, to which when she realised, she rolled over and pushed him off, telling him to stop.
Mackenzie Scott is a journalist with The Australian. She was at the Toowoomba Magistrates Court for a committal hearing on Thursday, where a magistrate said a jury, properly instructed, could find Bruce Lehrmann guilty beyond reasonable doubt. That means the matter now goes to trial before a jury at a date yet to be set.
She then alleges that he got on top of her and penetrated her again without a condom and had told her it's okay, and consoled her as he continued to have sex with her until he ejaculated.
Lehrmann has now been committed to stand trial on 2 counts of rape for twice penetrating the woman, allegedly without ascertaining whether she consented. The complainant says her body was limp and she was not enthusiastic, but Lehrmann persisted.
So after this, she told him that she wanted to go to a chemist to get the morning after pill.
That's an emergency contraceptive that reduces the risk of pregnancy after unprotected sex. The woman says she wasn't using any form of contraception when the alleged assault occurred. The pair drove in his car to the pharmacy and then on to McDonald's, where Lehrmann paid for coffee with his Westpac bank card. For this case, Bruce Lehrmann has engaged a Queensland criminal barrister, Andrew Hoare KC. He argued, on Lehrmann's behalf, there was no reason for the case to proceed, citing elements like messages the woman sent to friends after the night with Lehrmann, in which she said she'd had a good night.
The defence had argued that there was no case going forward, and one of the points that they had suggested was that when she went to get that morning after pill, instead of ticking a box that said she had been sexually assaulted. She had ticked a box that said that there was a contraception failure. So they allege that in ticking that box, she has denied that there was a sexual assault that took place, and she has changed her narrative since.
A voice actor is reading the words spoken by Bruce Lehrmann's barrister in court.
It must be said that the ticking of the boxes is quite distinct to any type of narrative being asked of her or otherwise, and that is said to be a contradiction of the complaint now made.
Andrew Hawcasey also argued the complainant had a handful of opportunities to disclose the alleged assault in the days and weeks that followed, including at an appointment with her GP, where her mental health was discussed and she took tests for sexually transmitted infections. The Crown prosecutor on the case, Nicole Friedewald, said that's pretty standard behaviour for a sexual assault victim. A voice actor is reading the words spoken by the prosecutor in court.
The fact that she did not disclose anything immediately, whether by ticking a certain box on a contraceptive checklist or by telling friends or acquaintances or general practitioners in the days after the offending, does not mean that it did not happen. Nor does it mean in my submission that she did not hold the subjective belief at the time that she had been sexually assaulted.
Friedewald pointed to a number of instances where the complainant alluded to an alleged assault, including in text messages she sent to a friend before making a formal complaint to police on November 6, nearly a month after the alleged rapes. Voice actors are reading that exchange.
I just feel so shameful. You also need to think about whether you would ever want to report this to police. There are options to do that anonymously too, if you're worried. What do you mean, report it?
Nicole Friedewald said at this point the complainant told the friend, as a fact, she'd been sexually assaulted and Lehrmann had committed a crime.
The complainant does not at that time question whether the fact is true. There is no dispute by her or confusion about what happened to her. Rather, what she immediately says is, "Who's going to believe me?"
Magistrate Mark Howden said the woman's story was that she had no idea who Lehrmann was until she Googled Brittany Higgins' rapist and saw an image of Lehrmann. Earlier this year, Mackenzie, Queensland passed some of the world's most tough sexual assault laws, including applying a life penalty for stealthing, that's tampering with or removing a condom during sex without the other person's knowledge. Bruce Lehrmann has not been charged with a stealthing offence, has he?
No, so this is 2 charges of rape. So whilst the pair had consensual sex with a condom as requested, the allegation of rape the following morning was that it was penetrative sex without a condom that had never been applied or discussed in the first place.
No date has been set for the trial and Bruce Lehrmann hasn't entered a plea, although he's expected to defend the charges. Coming up, how will the court handle Bruce Lehrmann's reputation? Britain will wake up soon to a new government, and at theaustralian.com.au right now, we've got all the expert analysis on what Labor's thumping defeat of the Conservatives means for the rest of the world. Check it out and join our subscribers to always know what you're talking about. We'll be back after this break. Lehrmann has been through this before, an earlier trial for an alleged rape in the ACT Supreme Court, although in that case he was not convicted. That's the matter of Brittany Higgins, a fellow former Liberal Party staffer, who said she was raped by Lehrmann in 2019. She alleged she awoke to find Lehrmann having sex with her and said she repeatedly told him to stop, but that he didn't respond. Higgins said Lehrmann ejaculated inside her.
The first thing that sort of awoke me was I was in a pain. My leg was kind of being crushed. The senior staffer was on top of me. I woke up mid-rape, essentially.
The cases have some striking similarities, including both complainants saying they were essentially asleep when intercourse began. Another similarity is that Lehrmann denies any wrongdoing. In the matter of Higgins, he denied any sexual activity had happened at all. In the Toowoomba matter, he admits having sex but says it was entirely consensual. And of course, the Toowoomba jury will be directed by the judge to put out of their minds anything they know about Lehrmann. They won't be allowed to bring their preconceptions into their deliberations at all. The jury in the ACT matter never returned a verdict, and it's against the law to solicit information from jurors about their deliberations, so we'll probably never know what their decision could have been. They'd been deliberating for several days when a court officer went into the jury room after hours and noticed among the jurors' papers a piece of research material about the propensity for sexual assault claims to be untrue. That's a breach of the rules for jurors. They're not allowed to bring material into their consideration which hasn't been presented to them in the courtroom. Justice Lucy McCallum dismissed the jury and aborted the trial. Lehrmann faced the prospect of another trial, but then the case was dropped altogether.
Crown Prosecutor Shane Drumgold told us this morning that he received compelling medical evidence that suggested if a retrial were to go ahead, there would be a significant and unacceptable mental health risk to Brittany Higgins' life.
Listeners to The Front know, of course, that a judge has found Bruce Lehrmann did rape Brittany Higgins. That was Federal Court Justice Michael Lee, who said on the balance of probabilities he believed Higgins' account.
I'm satisfied that it is more likely than not that Mr. Lehrmann's state of mind was such that he was so intent upon gratification to be indifferent to Miss Higgins' consent, and hence went ahead with sexual intercourse without caring whether she consented. This conclusion is not mandated by, but is consistent with my finding that intercourse commenced when Miss Higgins was not fully cognitively aware of what was happening.
Bruce Lehrmann is appealing that finding. Balance of probabilities is the civil standard because that was a defamation trial. In the criminal courts, such as the one in Toowoomba that will hear the present rape case, the standard is beyond reasonable doubt. And remember, Lehrmann doesn't have to prove or say anything. The onus is on the Crown to prove to the jury beyond reasonable doubt that the complainant's accusation is true. One interesting choice ahead for Lehrmann's lawyers is how they handle the matter of his reputation. Do they try to hope the jurors listen to the judge when he or she tells them not to bring any preconceptions to the trial? Or do they tackle it head on and tell the jurors, listen, you might have heard Bruce Lehrmann's name before and you might have some opinions about him, but this is about what happened on this particular night, and being accused of one thing doesn't make you guilty of another. Another choice for Lehrmann is whether he continues to pay a silk, a top barrister who charges upwards of $6,000 a day in the Toowoomba matter. He's already facing a huge legal bill in Sydney, having been ordered by Justice Lee to pay Network 10 $2 million to cover its costs and potentially more for Lisa Wilkinson's legal costs. In that matter, Lehrmann did have senior counsel or silks representing him, but they were acting on a no-win, no-fee basis. Thanks for joining us on The Front. Our team is Kristen Amiot, Jasper League, Leah Samaglu, Joshua Burton, Tiffany Dimmack and me, Claire Harvey.